Hi guys, so I'm here today to talk to you about presenting a conference paper. So a few days ago I gave my first big paper at a conference and I wanted to share that experience with you and what it was like for me and perhaps any takeaways I have from it. So in the past I have presented talks, papers, whatever you want to call them. We had to practice a little bit during my masters, so we had to give a kind of formal-esque presentation to our class, and we gave each other feedback on it. Since I've started my PhD, I've given 2 papers. Both, however, have both been at my university. So they've both been at the University of Roehampton. One was at a students' conference, which was just full of some undergrad and graduate students and some of the lecturers and staff at the university. And the other one was part of a guest lecture series that the university hosts, and I gave one of the guest papers on a piece of research that I had been doing. So that was a mixture of people that were already at the university and a few other people that came in to listen to that. But again, you know, you're in that environment of it being your university. That's not to say I wasn't incredibly nervous for that, because that felt like my first proper paper. And I'd never quite done anything like that before. That was before the student conference. And I've also done a little bit of teaching, not that it's exactly the same, but just in terms of standing up in front of people and talking about classics and ancient history. But there is obviously something different about doing a formal paper because it's your research. It's supposed to be something that you've been researching, it's new, it's not just repeating ancient historical facts and mythology to teach people that's kind of well established. It's about bringing your research to a new audience, to people that won't have come to the conclusions or looked at the evidence that you've looked at, if that makes sense. So it's quite personal in that sense. The paper itself was for the Classical Association Conference of 2018, which was hosted in Leicester this year, which is an annual conference held in the UK. It's the largest classics and ancient history conference in the UK. I think there was almost 500 people at the 2018 conference, and each year it's hosted by a different university in a different place. So that was Leicester, and it was my second time going to the CA. I'd been to the CA the previous year in 2017 when it was hosted in Kent, but I hadn't presented a paper. I'd just gone to see lots of people give papers. Although that's one thing I will say, I think it was very good for me to have gone to the CA before, or at least to have gone to something similar to the conference I was presenting at. It gave me a idea of what to expect before I got there, what other people had been like, how the panels functioned, all of that kind of stuff. And I definitely think I was more relaxed about going to the CA to present a paper having been before than I would necessarily have been if I'd never been before. That's not to say some people don't do it that way, and you shouldn't be put off from applying just because you've never been to CA before, but it definitely gave me a little bit of confidence, I would say. So I submitted an extract of my paper almost a year before the actual conference. It was a month or 2 after the previous CA had happened. I think it was the end of spring, beginning of summer last year that I submitted the extract. I think the deadline was around August. And I had been to that CA, and I felt like I was finding my feet with my research a little bit, and I had some original things to say, and I wanted to share that, and I wanted to put that little bit of pressure on myself, because you need to start doing this at some point in your academic career. You need to give papers outside of your own university and get other people's feedback on your research and reach a new audience and have discussion with other academics. So I knew I wanted to do it, and I thought, right, I think I know what I want to speak about. I'm going to write an extract, and the extract is basically just a short summary of what your paper will be about. There's lots of sort of stuff online you can find about giving you advice on how to write paper applications and extracts. So I wrote one of those, submitted it, had not written the paper, just to put it out there, had not written the paper, but knew what I was going to talk about, or at least what questions I wanted to answer in my paper and how I was going to go about that, because it was in part inspired by the research I was doing for one of the chapters for my PhD thesis. So I didn't give a paper on something completely unrelated to my PhD. Writing the paper, although a separate thing that definitely took up its own time, also wasn't a big distraction from my PhD, and in a way it helped me process some of the things I was writing for my PhD and that chapter, and it was actually a really helpful exercise, and that came up in discussions with my supervisors when they read my paper for me to give me some feedback, that it had really helped me nuance some of the ideas to my reader that I was trying to explain in more words in my thesis chapter. That having to write it in a really concise, condensed paper had really helped me. But I think I'm jumping ahead of myself now. So I submitted for the paper. A few months later I found out I'd been accepted, which was absolutely wonderful. So some conferences are themed and you might have to write a paper on a specific topic. It might be about ancient warfare if we're staying within the classics field. The CA, however, is open to all submissions. However, they do like to have a few general theme suggestions, but those are pretty broad and most things could fit into them. They then take your paper, however, and group you with other papers on similar topics or within similar themes. So I was grouped with 3 other people giving papers, and our panel was called the Rape Narratives panel, and within our tour panel we all gave a 20-minute talk, giving us each 10 minutes for questions as well, and that was a really wonderful experience. It was so fascinating listening to their research as well. There was 2 papers on Greek topics, one of which was mine, and 2 on Roman topics, which isn't a rule or anything, that's just how it worked out. So once I found out that I was giving the paper, I had to write the paper. Like I said though, this wasn't completely out of thin air, however, I didn't have to sit down and write something I'd never been writing about before. It was stuff I was already writing about, and I basically just wrote it in the style of a paper. So the paper itself, 20 minutes, about between like 2,500 and 3,000 words. I think mine was about 2,800 words, and that worked out pretty well in the time frame. So obviously the chapter of my thesis that I'm writing, that this was part of, is going to be like 15,000 words or something like that. So it was only an element of that, and it had to have an overarching argument. So it was different from the thesis chapter, but it wasn't entirely new material. It was just creating a paper out of material I was already working with. So in that sense, that was really good. But I will say, the build up to writing the paper was way more scary and anxiety ridden than actually writing this paper. So for a while I had other things going on and I couldn't quite start on the paper, and I felt so anxious that I hadn't written this paper. I was like, I'm going to a conference, I'm giving a conference paper, I know what I want to say but I haven't written the paper. What if I can't write something coherent in so few words? What if it doesn't all work out? What if it's not clear? All of these anxieties. And once I started writing it, it did not take me long at all, because like I said, I'd done the research. I wasn't making up new stuff or having to research something new. I wouldn't have submitted to be a part of this conference if I didn't know I had research to talk about. I just wanted to create obviously a really coherent, concise, original paper out of that material. And when I was writing it, it did not take long at all. Now obviously there was redrafting stages and changes and all of that stuff, but the original draft was, I don't want to say it was easy to write. It wasn't easy to write, but it was a pleasure to write, and it was something I could really focus my mind on doing and just get on with. Whereas the weeks I spent before writing that paper, I felt so anxious. I was saying to everybody, I'm not writing my paper, I'm freaking out. But writing the actual paper was a really pleasurable thing to do, which was a bit of a new experience for me. I think having just given those papers at my university was such good practice for this conference, because I felt way more anxious giving those papers than I did giving this paper, even though it was to an audience of strangers essentially, in a new environment, in a very professional atmosphere. I did not feel as stressed out about that conference as I did about the ones at my university. And I think in part that's because I was so proud of what I'd written. Obviously, I've been doing my PhD for almost 2.5 years now. I've really formulated some original research and ideas and arguments, and I've done a lot of work, and I just felt very confident about what I was saying. I mean, there's big bits of my PhD that I haven't done all the work on yet that I wouldn't be confident giving a paper on, but this bit I felt like I'd been working on for so long that I had the confidence. I had confidence in what I'd written. I felt like I'd written something way more impressive than I'd written in the past, and I think that in large part is because there was a real argument, or at least by the end there was a real statement. I'd made a statement based on evidence that I was showing in this paper, if that makes sense, and I really felt like I'd done that by the end of it. And it helped that I had some good feedback and support from the people around me. So once I'd written my paper, my supervisors very kindly offered to read it for me, and they read it, gave me some feedback. I made some changes based on their feedback that was really helpful, and they were really good changes. I think added to the clarity of the paper, but they also gave me a little bit of confidence. They told me what bits about the paper they liked, and we discussed how I'd managed to nuance and explore my ideas really well, and that was really helpful, and it boosted me a little bit. And I practiced giving the paper, so before the actual conference I read it almost every single day by myself in my room. But I also practiced it to 2 of my fellow PhD students at university. They kindly sat down and listened to me give my paper, and then they came to the actual paper at the conference, which was probably a bit repetitive for them but very nice. And then my friend Jill, who did an undergrad in classics with me, also listened to me read it to her. So that was really nice and really helpful. It just made me get more comfortable speaking in front of people. That definitely helps, because one of the things I do and a lot of other people do when they're speaking in front of people is speed up. So the length of time it was taking me to present my paper to myself when nobody was there to listen to me was slower than it was when I was talking to my friends. I definitely sped up, and that's because I was a little bit nervous. I didn't look up from my paper as much, even though there were entire sentences in that paper that I'd essentially memorised because I'd read it so many times. I would stare at the paper because I was nervous that there was people in front of me, and doing that a couple of times with people made me feel much more comfortable about the actual conference. And I did look up from my paper, which I was very pleased at. I wasn't just staring at paper the whole time without giving anyone any eye contact, which was good. Now, it was definitely a nerve-wracking experience, I cannot lie to you. There was also a lot of emotions tied to this experience for me, given that it was such a big moment for me as part of my PhD and my academic career, and it was very sad for me that my dad wasn't here to be a part of that or proofread my paper, or because academia is something that we shared, and I felt very connected to him through it. So I felt emotional about giving the paper, and of course anxious. Yeah, there was lots of things going on inside of me, but I didn't feel debilitated in any way by the time the conference came around. Over the course of this conference I saw many other papers before I gave mine and after I gave mine, and people were so different. There was people who didn't look up from their paper once, there was people who barely read off any notes, there was people who had PowerPoints, there was people who didn't have PowerPoints, there was people whose papers barely were longer than 10 minutes, there was people whose papers went quite a few minutes over their 20 minutes. Everyone was so different that made me feel more confident. There's not one way that if you haven't done it the same way as everybody else, you're the outlier. Everyone's nervous. People that have given a paper at conferences multiple times a year for their entire life still get a little bit nervous. Some of my friends that are doing PhDs that appear to be some of the most confident people in the world, they give amazing papers, they capture a room with their research, have even said to me that beforehand they just can't sit down. They're full of anxious energy and they're just like pacing backwards and forwards until they give that paper. And I think it's just about embracing that energy, even if it's anxious, nervous energy, and just sort of being like, I have been accepted here, I'm entitled to be here, I have something to say, I have prepared something. The worst thing that you could do is just turn up and have nothing to say, but given that you have written the paper, you've done the prep work, you have something to say. So go for it. Just almost fake it till you make it, and I think that's a bit of truth. I wonder sometimes when I tell myself, I'm just going to pretend I'm confident, even if I don't feel confident or I feel nervous, I'm just going to make everybody think I'm confident. And then I wonder where the line is drawn. If it's falsified confidence, if you're pretending to be confident to people, is it not just confidence in a way? So you just got to be like, I'm going to make everybody else think I am super confident, even if I'm all nervous and anxious inside. Just go with it. And I do think that works to an extent. If you do make little stumbles, which you are bound to do over your words, you just go back, you clarify. There was one point where I mixed up the names of 2 characters from Greek mythology, Polymestor and Polydorus. You can see why. And I just went, oh wait, no, sorry, went back, repeated that sentence in the right form with the right characters in the right place. Nobody's going to mind. Don't start getting stressed out and jumbling and like start thinking you've ruined it all. Just be like, oh wait, sorry, made a mistake, go back, that's fine, smile, it's all good. But I did ask if any of you had any questions, and the thing that people have asked questions about is the questions section. That seems to be what people are the most nervous about, is people asking them questions about their paper. So first of all, my experience, nobody was intentionally mean. There are people out there in the world who will take other people's research as an opportunity to kind of talk about either their own research, so they can give you information about what they're looking at and they want to make it about them essentially. Their question is often not a question and instead just a statement. Sometimes though, people do have very, very useful comments to make. They might have just read something that is relevant to you and they want to make you aware of it. However, there are some people that just, it's not really relevant to your research and it's a little bit more about them, or they've not quite followed your paper and they've zoned out or something, and their question isn't a question you would necessarily want to get. If you can't answer a question, it's okay to say, I haven't thought about that yet, but that's a really interesting point. Make a note of their question or what they've said. If you can think of something on the spot that's relevant to start a discussion, then totally do. The ideal situation is also that your chair is helpful. So the chair of the panel is somebody that introduces each panelist. They sort of help source questions for you, and they just kind of keep structure around the whole panel. And if somebody asks something completely irrelevant, the hope would be that the chair would say, that's not really relevant, that they should kind of control the discussion a little bit. That's not to say that always happens, but you can answer people in a polite way that then doesn't lead you down a completely detracted route from what you're talking about. Try and stay true to your paper and the information in it and bring it back to that and your research, even if it's beyond what's in the paper. Try and keep within that sphere. Don't let everything be detracted, but you can do that in a polite way. Even if the person asking the question hasn't been polite, you don't need to stoop to their level. You can't really prep for questions. You can guess what people are going to ask you questions about. Other people, if you practice to them, might ask you questions. Your supervisors might ask you questions, but that is not a guarantee that that's what will come up. You never know what's going to cross people's minds. I had one question which was really good. It was sort of partly a question, partly a comment. They asked about sort of my wider research and they talked about a source that was relevant to the general theme of my paper, that they were wondering about if I'd read it or thought about these issues in terms of my paper, and it was great because it was super relevant to my overall PhD thesis, and in that opportunity I could say, well, this is what my PhD thesis is about. And yeah, I have looked at some of these sources. I might go back and look at them again now that you've brought them to my mind, but they're definitely relevant, and this is why, blah blah blah. Somebody else asked a question that was more general because they were a Roman scholar and they had a question about Greek or Athenian laws and Athenian life that they didn't know about, which I had briefly mentioned male guardians in classical Athens, and how a woman could not take something to court herself. She needed her male guardian to take it to court on her behalf. And somebody asked a question about what happened if a woman didn't have a male guardian, or is that different in classical Athens from Rome? And I was like, so I just had to explain in that situation, knowing the historical background of my paper, that all women had male guardians in classical Athens. They couldn't not have one. If you were a citizen woman, you would have a male guardian, whether it be your husband, your brother, your father, your uncle, whoever that may be. So that was a more general historical question. Somebody asked me something a little bit more theoretical about what I thought the person giving the speech that I was exploring in my paper was thinking when they were writing this speech and including this myth in their speech. So you really don't know what people are going to ask, but you just have to think, you might not know the answers to those questions, and that's okay. And you just got to handle it in a professional way that you can have a little think about on the spot, and that's all right, if that makes sense. The likelihood is that 99% of the questions you get in your lifetime are going to be perfectly well-intended, nice questions. So don't worry about someone being mean or intimidating. It's not that likely. I didn't see anybody asking intentionally mean or intimidating questions during the entire conference whilst I was there. Obviously I didn't go to every single paper or panel, but I think that is reflective. I really look forward to the questioning segment of conference papers actually, and sometimes I wish there was more questions than there were, because I think it's such a good opportunity to discuss all the things that you couldn't include in your paper that you perhaps wanted to. It's a really nice opportunity to expand on your research, to get some good feedback, and that's why you're there. You're there to get feedback, you're there to grow as an academic and to nuance your research. Perhaps you want to adapt this paper into something that you could get published, then you need that feedback, you need those questions, and If you haven't been clear in some aspect of it and somebody looks for clarification, then that's great that they have shined a light on that for you. It might just mean adding a sentence or a word here or there. So really look forward to the questions section. See it as a real learning experience. But overall, I would definitely do this again. Obviously, as somebody who wants to be an academic, I have to give papers again. But I had such a positive experience that afterwards, it all felt sort of anticlimactic. I was like, what was I worried about? Really? What was I worried about? I just felt pretty exhausted and like, alright, well that's done then at the end of it, but also proud of myself. But I think the sort of adrenaline wears off and you're just a bit like, oh. But I'm really glad I did it, and I would 100% do it again, and I think I could really even do even better and just nail that performance, because it is kind of a performance. But overall, writing the paper, adapting some of my research into that kind of style, giving the paper, going to the CA, being part of that academic atmosphere, I loved, and I want to do it again. I want to submit a paper for next year's CA and maybe other conferences. I want to work on my paper and try and get it published. All of that stuff. It was a really positive experience for me, and I think most people would say that as well. So it's definitely something that I think you just kind of need to push yourself into. Just if you might be nervous, but you just got to take that leap. Take that leap and go for it, because it's always going to be nerve-wracking at the beginning, especially that first time, but you've got to get past that first time at some point, so just go for it. And if there's particularly things like student conferences at your university that's like at a slightly less intimidating level, then definitely get involved in those kind of things, get that practice in, do all of that. I know some of you will ask about my paper. My paper was called Demosthenes' Nightingale, Understanding Demosthenes' Use of the Procne and Philomela Myth within wider attitudes towards sexual violence or sexual assault in classical Athens. And I cannot share that paper with you, as I'm sure some of you would like, because like I said, I want to work on it and try and get published, and if I've put it online in any way it won't be publishable, if that makes sense. So it's something I'm going to work on. If it ever gets published I will let you know, but it's also going to be part of my PhD thesis, so you know, maybe in years to come you'll be able to read it. If you are interested in reading something I've written, I did publish a short article on Procne and Philomela over a year, like a year and a half ago now, which you can read. It was published on the Dangerous Women's Project, which was run by Edinburgh University, and I published that during my first year of my PhD. It's an accessible paper, it's meant to be readable by a general audience, and it's a lot shorter than, say, the paper I would have read at the conference, but it is something, if you're interested in a bit of stuff that is within my academic interest, I will link it down below for you. If you're interested in a little bit more of my PhD, I did do a 1-year PhD update, which I will link up here. I'll also link my entire study and university playlist down below, which contains loads of videos. I also have lots of videos introducing you to different aspects of ancient history and mythology, which I'll link below in the playlist. So if you want more after this, then do check those out. But I hope this video has been interesting, helpful to any of you that were interested in the process of giving a paper at a big conference. That's my experience. I'd love to hear about your experiences of writing and giving papers. What do you do when you have to talk in front of other people, even if it's not in an academic environment? What helps you through that? And also if you have any questions at all to do with university, studying ancient history that you'd maybe like videos made on, or just answered in the comments, then leave them down below. But until next time guys, happy reading, good luck in all of your public speaking and paper writing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.